Hi, and welcome back, everybody, to the Writer's Parachute. We are writing author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. And today we have a very special guest. She's a children's author and speaker and book reviewer, and she's also a counselor. So we have with us today Kelly Desclos-Estes, and she's going to be talking about her book, Cats with a Box. We're going to talk to her in just a few minutes, but of course, we always have our housekeeping to do up front. So of course, we want you to smash that like button, go ahead and slam your fist down on that subscribe button, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and for now, TikTok at Writer Parachute. So I hope you go follow us there. And of course, we're here on YouTube. We are also broadcasting all of our episodes on every podcasting platform out there. If you find one that I'm not on, just leave me a comment and I'll be sure to go get on that platform for you. So we want to make it easy for our listeners. So have a couple other things we're going to do in the housekeeping today. So for the month of June, so of course, we always start the show with a little topic. So we've been doing writing topics here for the last few weeks. And today we're going to talk about dialogue, what dialogue is and what dialogue is not. It is one of the big stumbling blocks that I see as an author coach, as an editor, and quite frankly, as a beta reader and a writer. So let's talk about what dialogue is and what it is not. Dialogue is not conversation. It is not us just sitting there talking to each other about, hi, how are you? How's the kids? That sort of thing. It really does not need that. Now, occasionally some people will use it to add color, and that's perfectly fine. None of these rules are hard and fast. But when you're beginning and you're struggling with dialogue, I want you to think about it, because there's only a few things that dialogue has a purpose for. Number one is telling us something new or interesting, or developing the character that is either speaking or being spoken to. So that's number one. Number two is advancing the story or the plot. And number three is telling us something that we would not otherwise know anywhere else. So these are the top three reasons that you would use dialogue. If it's being used for something else, you might want to think about cutting it. So this is a lot of times where stories tend to drag and go on and on. Also, think about your tags. A lot of times I see tags as being sad, grimaced, the LY words, quietly, sufficiently, or whatever it is you want to use. I want you to think about, can I replace that tag with an action? Because what I know, even though I'm sitting still, I'm having to sit on my hands because I am not a still speaker. Most people are not. We emote, we have emotional features, we change our facial expressions, we blink, we turn away, we move our hands, we do physical things. These are better descriptors, and they give you a better sense of showing rather than telling, which we always say is a better way to tell a story. Show us what you mean, don't tell us what you mean. So I want you to think about those three things. Do they fall into one of those categories? Are they telling us something about one of the characters? Are they advancing the plot? Or are they giving us information that we would not otherwise know anywhere else? And are we including action rather than the tired, tags about grimacing and all of those things? So I want you to think about that. I hope that's helpful for you today. And of course, now we're going to go ahead and move forward, and we're going to have a nice, lovely conversation with Kelly today. So Kelly is a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University and is a master's level counselor. She has worked with children, teens, and adults, helping them see different perspectives and gain independence. She is a co-author to a 2020 #1 bestseller, Warring Women Arise and Pray, a spiritual devotional chapter book. She has also been a contributing writer for churches, nonprofit agencies, and international publications. A lifelong rescue cat mom, Kelly enjoys sharing her stories about fur babies with others. Her two other children's books are currently in the works. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute, Kelly. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate the introduction and the chance to participate in this podcast. Looking forward to it.
Well, we're always so glad to have a new guest. And of course, for me, my heart is always with children's books. I mean, I love talking to other authors and I enjoy reading other genres and books, but my heart always comes back to children's books. So you and I have met a long time ago, kind of through Facebook. I mean, isn't that interesting that we find friends that way nowadays?
Yeah.
But it's good. You live out on the East Coast. I'm out here on the West Coast, but we get to have conversations.
Yeah.
It's very, very fun.
Yeah.
So, I do want to talk about your book. But
Okay.
we're going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons behind it. So in your children's books with Cat with a Box, it's dedicated to your son, Richie, and his cat, James. And I want you to share with us why this particular story and that dedication was so personal to you.
Yes, it is very personal. This book that I showed you is a labor of love. This is a legacy to my son. He was diagnosed with what is termed PDD, or pervasive developmental disorder, before his 4th birthday. Usually kids that have that diagnosis later get the diagnosis of autism. That's kind of like before you can do the testing and before they notice all of the other things, they call it PDD, and then they switch it to autism by the time you're 5, 6 years old. By the time you're in school, it's autism. So as you can imagine, school was a little bit rough to start with. He was the weirdo kid. I mean, unlike a lot of what people think of autism, he talked, he moved around, he was Sheldon. If anybody is a big fan of Big Bang Theory, Sheldon is on the spectrum. So you have a kind of idea of where Richie was. He was a little bit of weirdo. He had some issues with communication, which is typical of the disorder. He had issues with writing, actually. I didn't know that kids on the spectrum had fine motor and gross motor issues, but he could type much better than he could write. So we made that an accommodation in school. But the other parts are, he had trouble making friends. He doesn't know how, and that's part of the disorder too, is not knowing how to make conversation and not understanding those, what we call unwritten rules, such as, personal space, or if someone's waiting in line, you're supposed to be the next person in line, not jump in front, so, and it comes across different because he's like, I was just going in line, and everybody's like, hey, man, you're cut. He doesn't know what that means. So all of these things that we learn just by watching other people, he has to be instructed on. And he had a really tough time with how questions and why questions. Long story short, the first couple of years, from the age of 3 to about 8, we made weekly trips to Children's Hospital for psychotherapy, for nutrition therapy, for speech therapy, you name it. We were going to Children's Hospital for something. He was determined eligible for special ed. We did have the IEP meeting for any of you that have been through that. But anyway, while he was in elementary school, I turned into a postgraduate student in autism. I was working for a school system at the time. I was able to have access to trainings and conferences and things, so I could learn some tricks and tools and strategies to help my son with whatever. I mean, whether it be something at home, or that could be transition to school, or just how to finish a project or something along those lines. And when he was about in 3rd, 4th grade, he said he wanted a cat. We had a neighbor and they had 2 cats and they were friendly, and he said he wanted to have a cat. So we thought, okay, well, but he had to work for it. So we did some projects and he had some, positive, he did some things. And then we Each week we would get the dish, or we would get the toys, or we could get, whatever. And then by Thanksgiving of 2005, 2006, somewhere in that, the after school program he went to, one of the teachers had found a cat on the side of the road. And we said, oh, that may be our cat. So it happened in 2012. Richie was getting up to feed the cat, and he stopped breathing. He passed out on the floor and didn't recover. He was not quite 15. It was in March 2012, and he would have been 15 in May. So needless to say, this week has been especially hard. It's been a lot of triggers, a lot of memories. I know what some of those parents are going through. Let's just put it that way. So I had a lot of downtime and a lot of time to think. And by 2015, I started coming out of my fog a little bit. And I said, nobody wants to be the survivor or the legacy for their kid. It's not natural for us to outlive our kid. So I had to stop and think about, what can I do so that Richie is here, he leaves a mark, and also something to help other kids that are on the spectrum. And so when I'll get into the design of the book in just a minute, but we had two other cats. There was James. James was the old man by this time, and he didn't care about anything. We had 4 cats at the time, actually. So they were all rescues. And so 2 of them were playing. We lived in a very rural area, and so anything we had to get through the mail, we had to order in a big box. So we had the big box come to the house every once in a while, and we'd leave out the box. And I noticed the cats were playing in the box, and it was a pattern. And one would jump in the box, and then the other one would walk around, and then the other cat would would jump out of the box and attack, and they'd tussle and run around and all this other kind of stuff. And something inside me said, that would make a really cute book. So I did the approach of, if you give a mouse a cookie, that circular, how you start with the cookie, and then you want the napkins, you want the straw, you want the milk, and all that. So what I did with this one is I started in the box, and what my cat Max, who's the ginger on the front cover, what he does when he gets settled in the box. So I had that at the top, I had that at the bottom, and then I just had to work on the middle. And within 20 minutes, I had this whole story. Ran it by a couple of friends of mine who were in a writers group of mine, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cute, I think you ought to do this." And all this time I've been thinking, this isn't for me. I don't know how to do this. And I kept putting roadblocks in my way. I kept saying, well, I need an illustrator. And another person in my group has a niece who is an art teacher in an elementary school. So she gave me her name, and pretty soon Morgan and I are having a pretty steady conversation. We're sending pictures, we're sending videos, we're doing all kinds of stuff, because she was also in California at the time. So she did all of the illustrations. She by Thanksgiving of 2019, she said, "I think I'm done," which meant, okay, I've got to get this. Now I got to pull the book together. So I went through KDP, and February 2020, out came the book, and then March 2020, everything went and shut down. So that's where that is. But one of the things I did say I was going to talk about the way the book is designed and the illustrations. Some of the things that Richie had a hard time with were abstract concepts. And a lot of kids on the spectrum have trouble with abstract concepts. So he and the speech therapist, and we would do some stuff at home too, about what's under, what's over, what's beside, what's underneath, what I noticed, he was very visual. So sometimes we would turn the chair and say, okay, what is it from this angle? Or how does it look from overhead? Or, you know, so he would have the concept of what the word meant. So when I was designing, when I was asking Morgan about how to do the illustrations, you'll notice that a lot of nothing's straight on. I mean, there are some that are straight on, but there are some from the side, there's some from overhead, there's some from under, to reinforce that concept.
Well, it is amazing. And so, wow, that was a lot of information. And I do
I'm sorry.
I really do appreciate you being so forthright about that. And so I just want to say that I think it's amazing that you have taken a tragic situation and turned it into honoring not only your son, but the cat that meant so much for him. And in setting up the book, you're also honoring some of the things that he struggled with, so that the kids coming behind him have tools that weren't available, obviously, for your son. So I am so thrilled to see this kind of, outpouring of all these different kinds of books, where we are really seeing, especially in the kid-lit industries, where authors are starting to niche down and make books specifically for kids that are on the spectrum, for kids that are struggling with sensory issues, for kids that are, just having a difficult time with standardized books.
Exactly.
So I do appreciate that, but I want to ask you some more stuff. So your book is really great, but I do want to kind of shift gears, because you do talk about at the end of the book that you're very active with pet rescue and adoption, and you mentioned that you write about fur babies in your bio. So what do you think it is that you could tell our listeners right now that they could do to help with abandoned pets or pets that are in shelters?
Oh, wow. There's just so much. I have been around. I rescued my first cat when I was 3 years old. Little baby cat came in, Mommy, can we keep him? It was that kind of thing.
Right.
And when I was 8, the garbage shed that was near our apartment, Mommy Kitty went in there and had 4 babies. I brought them all into the house. We found homes for three, and I could keep one, so I kept the male, and all the other girls got sent out. So the issue is that this is baby kitty season also, because a lot of cats are born in the spring, and I might add that unlike a lot of other animals, female cats go into heat twice a year. Not once a year. They go into heat twice a year. And if you've ever been around a cat who's been in heat, the howling and the growling and all that stuff, and then it attracts all the tomcats, and they're all coming around, and pretty soon your house smells like cat pee. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant.
Right.
But what can people do now? I mean, it is baby kitty season. If you are serious, and I do mean serious about adopting a cat, because they're not going to be these little fuzzy, oh, it's so cute type things that, they, just like all cats, they go through an adolescent phase where they have a big head and a skinny body and a, funky looking, feet and everything. They go through an awkward stage too. But to be responsible for the cat, 2 cats, a male and a female, if left unchecked and
supervised,
unfixed, whatever you want to call it, in 7 years can produce almost 500,000 cats.
Oh my. I'm a cat owner myself, and and I tell people that I get very frustrated when I hear people compare. They're like, oh well, we'll get a pet, whether it be a cat or a dog or something,
right,
because we want to decide if we want to be parents. And I'm like, well, wait, that doesn't quite equate, because that animal will never learn to go open the refrigerator and fix themselves a sandwich.
Right.
They'll never be able to clean up after themselves or
Right.
go on and take care of themselves. It is a lifelong commitment. Now, most animals have a short lifetime, but it is usually somewhere around, 15 to 20 years,
Yeah.
sometimes beyond that. So that's a
Yeah.
big commitment. So it's like, I always say that I think the big thing is to be sure that you're ready for such a big commitment. And
Exactly.
you're right. One of the big things is that they do change. I mean, yeah, they're cute and they're little and they're funny and stuff like that, but they eventually grow up. They eventually start clawing at things and scratching things and howling and
Yeah.
the litter box and the cat food, and it
Right.
does become overwhelming. So
Right. Not to mention the vet visits and having to shove them in the cat carrier.
right. Well,
That's another story.
they are making a little better ones. I do like the blanket ones that kind of wraps up into a bag. So those are
Yeah, those are kind of cool.
so I'm trying to figure out the merge between, I mean, I sort of understand it, but I want you to put it into words, the merge between your son and his learning issues and his passing, and then the cat and the pet rescue into writing for children. So how did that all kind of merge together and meet in the road?
Well, it just kind of flowed. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Richie was a big animal lover also. So when he was in elementary, I want to say 5th grade or so, he volunteered at the local SPCA. There were a couple of other organizations that he volunteered with that they did the, what do you call it? The pet adoption stands on Saturdays. So he would do that. When he died, we put in lieu of flowers, please donate money to the Richmond SPCA. Over $3,000 was donated. So that's kind of where that fit together. The other piece is I had worked in a community service position when I was in undergrad. And I had to get so many hours of community service hours to get this degree. And then I also worked for them over the summer. So it turned into a job also. But it was I guess, like a Head Start program. So there were preschool kids there. And I just loved sitting with the kids while the director at the time was reading stories, and just watching the kids, their eyes get all big and just look at that. And they're talking and they're answering questions and stuff. And then pretty soon I graduated, so I could be up reading the books too. And then when I was in grad school, I worked at a daycare, and I had the after school group, and then I was promoted to a lead teacher, and then I had the preschool kids. So I went from having the older kids to their younger siblings, and they got a little upset about that. Yeah, that's okay. So
yeah,
that's where that kind of came from, is that I just love reading. I love reading stories to little kids. And anybody who knows me says I'm a big kid. I mean, I'm like 5 foot nothing. I've been the same height since 6th grade. And I'm just a big kid. Mm-hmm. And I get into it just as much as they do.
Well, that is, and you're right. It is very addictive. It's like I go into schools and I read, and I love doing it and interacting with kids. And I think for me, it's because they aren't afraid to give you that honest initial response. And
right.
So you kind of know whether you've hit or missed really quickly. It's like I can always tell at a school visit whether I'm doing well or whether it's just completely bombed, because they will tell me. So beyond being an author, being a counselor, and all of these, and a cat rescuer, it's like you also are an active reviewer for kidlit authors, which is just amazing. Reviews are kind of king for authors, really king for children's authors. And it's really difficult to get good reviews of books. Yes. So why do you think that it's so critical to do that for other authors?
It just is. I mean, we had talked about this earlier. There are so many self-publishers out there. It's much easier now than it was years ago when they had traditional publishers, because everything you need is right here.
Mhm.
You know, there's software that you have access to. There's digital photos. There's all kinds of stuff that is in our hands now. And with 2020, with the shutdown and the lockdowns, everybody was turning to the computer.
Mhm.
And it kind of really blossomed, I guess is a good word for it. But since there is so many, I mean, the competition is fierce.
Right.
And Amazon is like the #1 bookseller now, I think is what someone told me. And parents and grandparents do most of the buying of the books, and they want something that's different, but they don't want something, you know, they want to be able to teach their kids or grandkids or whoever something, but they don't know what to pick. So
Mhm.
I figured, since we had that group that we were a part of,
Mhm.
it would just be a natural fit to do not only just the written review, but also do the video review.
Right.
To
You and I
give people a leg up. Yeah, to give people a leg up. And, you know, I don't know how many people it helped, or if it hindered, or if it was too long or too short, but
Mhm.
I know some people got some good out of it.
Yeah.
It helped me with being in front of the camera and giving me a chance to read some of these really great books. I got a great collection now of kids' books, and
Right.
hope to add to it.
I like doing it, but unfortunately for me, I just don't have as much time to dedicate to that as I would like. I have so many books that people have sent me, you know, asking me to review and opinions and stuff, because, you know, being a coach and an editor and stuff like that, I get a lot of requests for that, and it kind of breaks my heart, because you know, I honestly don't agree with the fierce competition. I feel like sometimes that gets misinterpreted. You know, former teacher and reading specialist, you know, what I know is you go into any classroom, into any daycare center, into any school or home that has children, or that has children on a regular basis, and they have more books than just from one author or from just one book. So a lot of times what I like to share with authors is that our, you know, the other authors are not really your competition. It's the space on that bookshelf. So you just have to think about, how do we help each other get on that bookshelf? And reviews is
Right.
one of the ways to do that. It's like, I know for myself, when I'm looking for books, when I want something to read, I read the reviews. They do make a difference. And
Mhm.
you know, and I read the bad reviews as well as the good reviews, because sometimes the mediocre reviews will tell me more about what is in the book than the good reviews. Because a lot of times, you know, the I mean, you want to read some of all of them, but sometimes the good reviews get a little repetitive.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate good reviews when I see them, quality reviews. And again, like I said, I don't discount bad reviews. I think sometimes they tell you something important about the book that may not bother you, but just happen to bother that reviewer. So uh,
Right.
I think that is really an amazing way to kind of expand your uh, platform as an author, is to be a reviewer. And I think it also helps your writing, because you do see a variety of good writing and medium writing and maybe not so good writing. You get to see a lot of people who maybe got quality editors versus people who decided that they didn't want that expense and just had a friend edit it or used a
Yeah.
program. So, you know, you do get to see that. You also get to see, especially with children's books, you get to see the extraordinary range of illustrators and
Oh,
how
yeah.
much they can either help or hinder a book. So yeah, I think you know, I think a lot of new authors would expand their writing skills quite frankly, a lot by leaps and bounds just by doing reviews of other children's books, because you're going to read it, you're reading it critically to give an opinion about it, and you're going to start noticing these things. So
yeah, I don't think I've written a bad review, and I don't think it's because of anything in particular. I think each book on its own has something to say. So that's usually when I'm reading the books, I'm looking for what is the theme, what is it, what are they trying to say, and how successful are they with getting the theme across.
Right. And I hesitate to say bad review, but you do see those occasionally where somebody is being critical in their review,
Right.
where they did not appreciate the book, or they did not agree with the book, or they had some issue with the way the book was written or presented. And that's what I'm talking about, is I find just as much information about that book in those reviews as I do all of the the glowing reports. So I appreciate that. And then you also have now started a YouTube channel to kind of share some of this stuff called A Right Perspective. You have read alouds, you have some reviews and stuff that you've done for other authors. So why was it important to start this YouTube channel and do these read alouds and get these video reviews out there? I mean, I know we've sort of talked about it and we danced around it, but I want to know what it is that you see in your journey as an author and writer.
It's another medium to get the word out. And my experience, and I'm sure with your experience, you have seen there are folks that don't have access to a lot of books, or don't have access to someone who will read to them on a regular basis. So that was one of the reasons that I did the summer reading last year. I did mostly public domain access, so I wouldn't get in trouble.
Right. Yeah. You have to pay attention to the copyright.
Yeah. But it was just something that I wanted to do. I wanted a place to put the reviews, so it would make sense to have a YouTube channel. I also want to grow it. I would like to do more reviews. I started a business with the actual name A Right Perspective, spelled W-R-I-T-E. It's just a play on the words, because one thing I've learned over the years is that things are good, things are bad. Bad things happen, good things happen. The way you see it is your perspective. So it's all in how you interpret things. I'm a big journaler. I do a lot of that type of writing, so I've grown a lot, and it just helps me focus on what's really important, and to give other people an opportunity to maybe use journaling and reading and some other tools to help with express their feelings, get use for creativity, just all of those kind of things. And there are quite a few folks that they're not good readers. I mean, as far as reading to yourself, they're better auditory learners. So that was another reason to do videos, because a lot of the summer reading, I had the book open, I had an overhead shot, and so you could see the picture and the words, so you could kind of follow along.
Right.
So
right, and I find that amazing. So I just have a couple questions for you, because we're going to talk about how somebody would get in contact with you for that. But before we jump to that, I just want to clarify. So I know you do reviews for kidlit authors, mostly picture books. So do you do other genres? Are there specific genres that you do not do reviews on, or is there?
I haven't been approached really on anything. I do have some friends of mine that are authors, and they've have workbooks, and they've done some things. So I've done a written Amazon review for that.
Well, I know you did written in a video review for my book. which is middle grade chapter book. So so what I'm trying to determine is the guide rails that you're having. So are you open to anybody requesting one, and then you'll make that determination? Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Well, that's great. So if an author or writer wants to contact you for more information or to request a book review, what is the best way to reach you?
Well, the best way to reach me, I have availability on 3 different platforms. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but where would they go specifically to get information about?
Oh, okay. I have a website. It's called awriteperspectiveinc.com. So it's www.perspectiveinc.com.
And you have like a contact form on there?
Yeah, there's a contact. I have 3 services that I offer, which are the book reviews, the storytelling, and then what I call the supplemental worksheets, which is helping with some folks want an activity to go along with their book, or a chat, or one per chapter. So I have that, and there is contact information on the website.
Well, that is awesome. So just to let you guys know that are listening, we will have the links to all of this for you in the show notes at the end of the show. So please do go check this out. We'll have the link to her website. And but we got some more questions for you. So here on the Writer's Parachute, we're always talking about, problems and obstacles and trying to find solutions. We try to talk about all those things that somehow just get swept under the rug or hidden behind the corner. So what was the biggest obstacle or challenge for you as an author, writer, and what do you think you learned from it?
Oh, I think the biggest challenge is the old phrase, be careful what you wish for. No one goes into this thinking that it's self-employment, basically. I mean, you're basically an entrepreneur. So everything that goes along with that, the taxes, the marketing, the sales, the website, all of that gets all muddled in, because I thought, oh, I just write stuff and that's it. No. That's not it. So there's a lot more pieces, a lot of more moving pieces than I originally thought. And the other big thing is I worked with a coach, and she liked to use the word comparisonitis, which I think is very relative, because when you get into this and you see what someone else is doing, and this one has X number of reviews, and this one has X number of sales, and X number of YouTube watch subscribers, what have you, it's real easy to get bogged down in the numbers and, oh, I'm not as good as.
Yes, we get caught in the enoughs, and yep. It's really easy to get trapped there. I, as an author coach, I see this so often, and I'm always surprised about what it is specifically that triggers different authors. Some of them, as you said, I don't have as many reviews as this other person, or I don't have as many awards, or I don't have as many sales, or this person is doing all these school visits and I can't get into a school, or they're doing all of these great, interviews all over the place and I can't get anybody to talk to me. And what I say is, you don't know what their journey is. You don't know what they've gone through to get to that point. Because, I know a lot of people look at me and they're just like, oh, wow, you're going to make, I had to put in the work too. Yeah. I had to learn. And that's the thing that most authors forget when they're going through the process, especially the first time, is you're not only doing it, you're having to learn it and pass a test at the same time.
Exactly.
To know what you're doing, and to discern whether or not the information you're receiving, helpful or otherwise, is accurate.
Exactly.
So I know that you and I talked a little bit before the show, and you were talking about that you also work full time. And so switching to this virtual world and kind of keeping yourself on a writing habit and schedule has been a little bit of a challenge for you as well.
Yeah, because when I work, I work an 8-hour shift every day. I commute about 45 minutes. So, when I get home, usually I'm tired. I want to take a little break. But then I realize I've got to put in the work. And the only time I really have is, between 8 and 8 p.m. and the time I go to bed. So it depends on how that is. Last year at this time, I was burning the candle at both ends pretty seriously. I was working all day. I was staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning, and I burned myself out within less than a month. I burned myself. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I realized I had to take small bites.
Right.
So I switched things up a little bit, and I still have a list of goals. The goals is much smaller, and they're much more measurable.
Right.
So instead of I'm going to make X number of sales, my goals this year is to be consistent. So every day I make 3 contacts. That's enough.
Well, and it is important for people to understand that writing and publishing and being an author is a marathon. It is not a sprint, because once your book is out there, it is out there for your lifetime and beyond.
Right.
So there's going to be an audience coming in waves. So this wave of kids, that may not appeal to them, but you never know when the next wave comes, it does appeal to them. And sometimes it's about getting, especially for new authors, getting known and being heard, being seen, where people, it's like they may love your book, they have no clue it's even there. So sometimes that, that is why we talk about this being a marathon, not a sprint. You have to take it one step at a time, stay in your lane, and just keep moving forward.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you some really quick questions. So we want to get to know you just a little bit better. So what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, I would give the same advice I told my son, which is he was very concerned when he was a teenager about being like everybody else. And because of his autism, he wasn't like everybody else. And I said, okay, let me tell you something. While you're a teenager, that's about the only time in life that you are expected to want to be like everybody else, because it's normal. That's just the developmental phase. Most of us spend our whole life being ourselves and doing things the way we want. And so you might as well go ahead and get as much practice in as possible. Because when we're little, we're told, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we're independent. And then, that teenage, people get stuck there sometimes. And so I would say, don't get stuck, and just keep, do what you think is right, do what comes natural. And
well, and that's excellent advice for authors, because yes, think about when you're a child, you're given so much freedom to be and think and do and be as absolutely individual and unique as you want to be. And then we hit, that friend
13.
Friend zone where we don't want to stand out. We want to just be part of the collective. We want to be kind of melted into the whole. And then we come out the other side into adulthood, and we're like going, oh, I don't want to be melted into the whole anymore. I want to be a bit unique again. And it's really hard to transition back. And this applies to authors when you think in the beginning, you're like, oh, I have all this freedom. I can be whatever I want to be, and I can write whatever I want to be. And then you hit the wall and you're like, oh, I need to be like every other author out there. And I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do it this way. And I need to, and then you come out the other side and you're like, well, actually what makes me a great author is that I'm different from everybody else. And it's really hard to transition back to that. So I think that's excellent advice. So what advice would you give to any new or upcoming authors and writers?
Well, my first inclination is to say, well, I'm still kind of in that category because I'm still kind of new and emerging. But I again, as we talked about with the comparisonitis, is to steer clear of that. And, you know, like you said, stay in your lane and do your thing.
Right. Because again, you don't know how many times that person failed before they published.
Right.
Whereas you may have just blasted ahead and go, you know what, I'm just going to jump off that cliff and go ahead and build my parachute on the way down. Some other people are a little more specific and a little more careful in coming that forward. So they may have had a lot of preparation time, a lot more preparation time in the beginning, trying to figure it out before they're willing to jump. So sometimes that gets lost in there. So that's actually excellent advice for new authors and writers. So I want to know who inspires you.
Everybody. I stared at the question and I thought about some specific people, and then I realized, you know, you inspire me. The other people in the group that we joined has inspired me. Some of my friends that are turning their passions into small business. I've met so many people. And so, and even at work, there are people on my caseload that, you know, have overcome so much and are out there working full time and making their own money and all of that. So that's why it may sound like a cop out, but everybody has something that can inspire someone else.
Right. And so usually my answer to that question when I get asked is dreamers pursuing their dream is who inspires me, because that's what I aspire to do. You know, is to continue chasing that dream and learning something new every day, you know. So those are the people who inspire me and get me out of bed in the morning, which is really what you need. You just need something some kind of passion or inspiration to get you going every single day. So we're going to talk a little bit more about you, and we're going to close out this interview and then go on to pulling the ripcord on our tip of the week. So do you have any upcoming events or anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, actually, we are coming up on a new month, and I do have a couple of things coming up. I would like to have what's called a summer reading for Mommy and Me bundle. So what that would be is Mommy would get this, and the little kid would get this.
Okay. So for some of our listeners who are not seeing the video on YouTube and on one of the podcasting platforms, can you go ahead and tell us what it is?
Tell us what that was. Okay. Summer reading Mommy and Me bundle is Mommy or Grandma or Nana or whoever would get a copy of my best-selling book, Warring Women Arise and Pray. It's a spiritual anthology, and it's also a workbook. So each devotion has some pages in it, and you can actually use it as a workbook. There are some people that have used it as a group study book. So there's that. And then my book, Cats in the Box, is for the little kids. And the bundle will be $35 plus tax, free shipping. And I'm also going to start a pre-order. I have revamped my Cats with a Box books. I've gotten a new I've got a hardback version coming out, and I've redone the cover and made a couple of little tweaks. So pre-orders for that will start in June. And hopefully that will be available will be ready for July, so we can have Christmas in July.
And don't you also have like a library event coming up here soon? I thought that I was reading that on your website.
There's a local library, and they have local author showcases. So I have a spot for July 25th, and our local Richmond SPCA is having a big anniversary bash on Saturday, June 4th, and I'll be schmoozing around there too.
Okay, so these are people who are in the Virginia, Richmond area. So if you go to her website, again, we'll have the notes in the links in the show notes for you. But yes, she does have a library event coming up the end of June. And of course, excuse me, end of July, you're correct.
Yes.
And she's doing this promotion during the month of June. So we'll have information where you can contact her to find out about that and her new expanded publication of her book, Cats with a Box. And also, we want to talk to you just a smidge about if you're going, you said you're going to be your summer reading program, or what if where would an author or a writer reach out to you if they want to participate with you in the summer reading program? If they want to offer their book, or they want to come onto your show and
okay, well, you can message me, or you can email me. I have a Gmail account, kdeewrites@gmail.com. I also have one that's associated with the business, a Write Perspective Inc@gmail.com. So either one of those, you can reach me. I do have a stash. So if anybody that wants to send me their book and have me review it, I will be more than glad to do that. And do an Amazon written review at no cost, and we can talk about it. We can talk about the video reviews, at another point. But yeah.
Well, this is amazing, and you are just offering my listeners a plethora of just amazing things here. I want you guys to listen to this. She is offering free reviews for books for the asking. She is offering to read aloud children's books for the asking. So if you are a children's author, I'm telling you, if you are not typing out an email to Kelly right now, you have just missed your opportunity. And we will have those email addresses for you in the show notes. That's a writeperspective@gmail.com. And that's a write, WRITE perspective at gmail.com, or KD, and that's a letter K with DEE, writes@gmail.com. And again, we will have those in the show notes. But I'm telling you, I'm about ready to pause this recording and go ask you for mine. So before we do that, though, where can we find your books?
My book's available on Amazon. And if any of your listeners are in the Colorado Springs area, there is a new bookstore that just opened. It's called Young Bookworms. It's in Colorado Springs. And this friend of mine, Jody McCoy, she's also an independent author. She opened up this bookstore, and it has nothing but independent children's book authors in it. So my book's on the shelf.
Awesome. We always love to hear We always love to hear about new places for independent authors to be promoted. So thank you for that. And you said it's Jody McCoy?
Joni.
Well, thank you, Joni, for that. And of course, if you're in the Colorado Springs area, please do go check out her new bookstore. And then, so you said you're on social media, that you're active there. So can you let us know what platforms and usernames that you're using on social media, in case any of our listeners want to go follow you and keep track of what you're doing next?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's Kelly-Desclos-Estes with some numbers behind it. Just put in my name, you can find it. I'm on Instagram. And that is Kelly DEE, a Write P Inc. And I'm also on Facebook. I have my own author page, and that's Kelly DEE Author.
Okay. And like I said, we will have the links to all of those for you in the show notes. So where else can we find any kind of updates or ongoing information about what's going on with you? Because it sounds like you have an exciting summer and the rest of the year planned. So we want to make sure we stay up to date on everything that you have going on.
Well, like I said, I post regularly on all three platforms, and I send things out.
Okay.
I don't know what else to tell you.
A newsletter update or something like that they can sign up for?
That's been Someone has asked me about that. I haven't broached that
Okay.
yet, but yeah, that's something to consider. But on my author page, I have a weekly post.
Okay.
So it kind of has an update, and I do put information on there. If you want to check out my YouTube channel is also A Right Perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You can subscribe to that. You can see some of the book reviews that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also see some of the read alouds that I've done.
All right.
So,
Well, yeah, and again, like I said, we will have the links to not only all of her social media, to her website, to her email address, and to her YouTube channel, A Right Perspective. So I just want to say thank you. But before you go, we're going to go ahead and pull the ripcord off of the tip of the week, and then we'll come back and talk with you just for a minute before we close it out. So for those of you, tip of the week. So for we were talking earlier with Kelly about some of the problems that she was having. And she said that, you know, going to the virtual setting, I mean, it did kind of hit her at the wrong time. And we've talked to other authors, you know, that they had the books coming out in early 2022, late, 2019, and you know, and it hit that pandemic where, you know, just everything was canceled. I myself had multiple school visits that were canceled. I had conferences that were canceled. I had festivals and events that were all canceled. So we can certainly understand it, but it is a little more complicated for a new author that has all of these things planned out and trying to transition, as we were all trying to shift gears. So I do understand that. But the one thing that I did want to talk about for our tip of the week was her talking about creating this writing habit and writing schedule, because she has so many demands on her time. She has a full-time job. She has a, long commute, and and she's doing all these amazing things. She's not only writing, she's reviewing, she's doing this YouTube channel, she's active on social media, and she's a wife. And so, and a counselor. So, I mean, that's a lot of demands on your time. So what I would say as our tip of the week is, try and create your writing habit, your writing schedule. It is unique to you. It should be what you are comfortable and confident with. Now, a lot of people will start out making these grand plans when they start, and they're like, oh, well, it's like I can write 5,000 words a day. And it's like, and so I'm going to set a goal for myself, 5,000 words a day. And what we find quickly is that the demands of life interrupt those high goals. And so what happens when you fall short, then you feel the need to try and continue to catch up, and it only causes you to fall further and further behind. So one of my best advice is to say, set your goals the lowest to the absolute minimum that you would consider success. If it's a sentence or a paragraph or 100 words, then set that as your goal and sail past it every day easily, even on your tough days when you're having to drag each word out by its ankles. So that way you don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel as if you're falling behind or failing. We want success for you. Everyone wants success for you. We don't want the enoughs to come in. I have a critic that lives inside of me. I've named him George. I lock him in the closet often because he annoys me. I hope that you guys take that step and, lock George away for yourself. But also think about other opportunities. As Kelly said, she's got a 45-minute commute back and forth every day. Use available tools. There are so many tools that you can use nowadays. We have audiobooks. You can listen to audiobooks in your car. But you can also, as long as it's not distracting you from your driving, you can record notes for yourself, or maybe make a few of those phone calls while you're stuck in traffic. That way, when you get home, you have that time. And time does not necessarily need to be a huge block of time. Try to batch your stuff together. Work on social media one night a week after work. Try and pre-plan all your posts, get those done. There are apps out there that will help you with that, where you can go in and pre-plan all of those weeks, months in advance. There are the recording apps that you can, speak, record, it's voice to text. A lot of them have, dictation, which are great. Those are useful tools. Also, when you're writing, try and get the I need tos out of the way before your writing time. I think the biggest killer of my time when I sit down to write is, oh, I need to make a doctor's appointment. Oh, I need to put that item on the grocery list. Or did I turn the dishwasher on? So a lot of times I start my writing sessions with just getting all of that nonsense out of my head. I just write it down in this big long list of just everything that I've got in my head, dump it out on a piece of paper, and it's done, and I don't have to worry about it. Now, whether I ever refer to that or not doesn't make any difference because I've gotten it out of my head. It's not churning in there while I'm trying to be creative. This is what I'm talking about, creating a habit, creating a schedule. And again, that time is whatever time you have to devote to it, but be present and be passionate and be focused on what you're doing. If it's 10 minutes every night and that's all you've got to give, that's great. That's still a schedule. That's still a habit, but be present, be focused, and use that 10 minutes. And don't forget that a lot of that thought that goes on in your head, that's part of the writing process too, and it does count. So don't always say that I only made progress by word counts. There are so many other factors that go into writing a book. So make sure you're thinking about what it is you're doing and making a plan. I think a lot of times I find that creating habits and creating schedule is about having some sort of plan. That way you're not just sitting there staring at the screen going, oh, well, what should I do next? When you have a list of 100 different things you could be doing, have a plan. So I hope that's helpful for you today. That's our tip of the week. And of course, we'll be back next week with another great episode. I want to remind everybody to go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe on many of the podcasting platforms. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and now on TikTok at Writer Parachute. That's with Writer Parachute with no S. So I wanted to thank Kelly for being our guest today. We had a wonderful time with you, Kelly. And I hope that you come back again when you have your next book ready to go. And of course, we always hope that all of your writing dreams land perfectly. Until next time, bye.